In the quiet village of Okoroma, traditions were sacred. People still believed in dreams, ancestral promises, and the wisdom of the elders. When someone gave their word, it wasn't just talk, it became law, even if decades passed. In this village lived a bright little black girl named Ayana. Her hair was always tied back in two neat puffs, and her eyes held more depth than her age allowed. She lived with her mother, Mama Zora, the village healer. People traveled from far towns to seek Zora's touch. She worked with herbs, prayers, and ancient knowledge passed down by her foremothers. One blistering afternoon, a black luxury car pulled up at the village center. A wealthy black woman stepped out, adorned in gold jewelry and high-end heels, but her face was pale with fear. In her arms, she held her only child, a limp little boy burning with fever. His name was Omari, and he was only 8. His lips were cracked, his skin hot, and his eyes refused to open. The woman pleaded with Mama Zora. She had gone to every hospital in Lagos, tried every doctor. Nothing worked. Someone whispered the name Okoroma to her in desperation. Now she was begging for help. Zora touched the boy's forehead, eyes focused, spirit calm. "We'll do all we can," she said. For 3 days, Mama Zora worked tirelessly, boiling, roots grinding leaves, speaking prayers in the old tongue. Ayana stayed close, fetching water, holding Omari's hand, never leaving his side. On the 4th morning, Omari opened his eyes. The fever was gone, his breath was steady, he was weak but alive. His mother broke down in tears, falling to her knees, and thanking Zora with everything she had. That evening, the village elders gathered beneath the sacred Iroko tree. They wore white robes and held carved staffs. They declared a soul debt had been created. Mama Zora had saved the boy from death. A spiritual bond had formed. They said the children's lives were now joined. Ayana and Omari were brought forward. The elders drew white chalk on their foreheads and placed oil in their palms. Their hands were joined. A quiet promise was spoken under the rustling leaves. The wealthy woman agreed. She nodded along, but deep down she didn't understand. She thought it was just village custom. Beautiful, maybe, but nothing real. She left the next morning with Omari, returning to the city with gratitude, but never looked back. But the village didn't forget. Mama Zora didn't forget. Ayana grew. The story was repeated to her every year on the same date. "You helped save his life," Zora would say. "Your spirits touched, and one day that bond will wake again. If you meet him, the ancestors will test you both." Ayana would nod, even though the weight of it didn't fully sink in. And far away, the boy who once burned with fever had become a man, a powerful black man in the city. Omari Okoye had forgotten the village, the promise, and the girl with quiet eyes. But the bond never forgot them. By the time Ayana turned 19, she had blossomed into a stunning young black woman. Her skin glowed like bronze in the sun, her eyes soft but steady. When she walked through Okoroma's market square, people turned to admire her grace. Elders whispered, "That girl is different." The boys watched from a distance, too nervous to speak. But Ayana didn't feel special. She felt trapped. She often sat by the river, barefoot, staring at the clouds drifting beyond the treetops. She wondered what life looked like beyond the red clay roads of Okoroma, beyond the same huts, the same songs, the same stories. One evening she told Mama Zora, "I want to see the world." Mama Zora frowned. "The city moves fast, child, fast people, fast lives. Our roots are here." "I know," Ayana said, "but my path, I feel it's not here. Not forever." Mama Zora didn't stop her. She just nodded, slow and thoughtful. "Then when the time comes, go with your full heart. But remember, what's yours will always find you." Before sunrise the next morning, Ayana packed a small bag. She wore a faded dress, wrapped her hair, and slipped a note under Mama Zora's prayer bowl. She walked alone through the village gates, heart pounding, feet sure. After 2 long days of dusty travel, She arrived in Abuja. The air was different, thicker, louder, full of ambition. Cars sped past like they didn't see her. Everyone had somewhere to be. No one said hello. Ayana slept on wooden benches for a while. Then she found a cramped room to share with two other girls, strangers at first, then survival sisters. She wandered streets, asked about work, knocked on doors. One afternoon she saw a sign taped to a glass door of a high-end restaurant in Maitama. Waitress wanted, clean appearance, must speak well. Ayana stepped inside. Everything gleamed. Crystal glasses, white tablecloths, music humming low. The manager, a sharp-eyed man named Mr. Bayo, gave her a long, cold stare. "What's your name?" he asked. "Ayana. You ever worked in a place like this?" She shook her head. "But I learn fast." He smirked. "Fine, you'll do." And just like that, she had a job. Every morning, Ayana wore her uniform, a crisp white shirt, black skirt, and long sleeves even in the heat. She always kept her left wrist covered. Beneath the fabric was a tiny scar, a tribal mark from that old soul-binding ceremony. She never let it show. Mr. Bayo was cruel. He shouted when drinks were late. Sometimes he touched the girls when no one watched. Ayana kept her head down and her boundaries firm. She needed the job. She needed the quiet. But every time she served wealthy guests, men in suits, women in diamonds, her heart tightened. She didn't know what she was waiting for. Only that something was coming. And far across the city, in a skyscraper lined with glass and guarded by polished marble, Omari Okoye was living a life he never dreamed of back in the village. He had forgotten the girl with the chalk on her forehead. But fate hadn't forgotten him. And Ayana? She was now closer than he could ever imagine. The afternoon felt too quiet, the kind that made even the polished walls of the restaurant seem uneasy. The chandeliers sparkled above, the air was scented with imported flowers, and Ayana moved from table to table with grace, balancing trays, pouring wine, keeping her eyes lowered. That morning, Mr. Bayo had barked his orders. "A very important guest is coming today. No mistakes." Ayana triple-checked her uniform. Her shirt was spotless, her sleeves were buttoned, her hair pulled back so tight it tugged at her temples. She didn't want trouble. She never did. By noon, the energy in the restaurant shifted. Men, in black suits, arrived first, speaking into earpieces, scanning the room. Then the main doors opened, and in walked a tall black man in a dark gray suit. His presence was silent, but powerful. His stride didn't shout, but it made people move. It was Omari Okoye, the billionaire CEO, but Ayana didn't know yet. Behind him walked a stunning black woman in red heels and a body-hugging dress. Her name was Naomi, Omari's ex-fiancée. She had arranged this lunch hoping to win him back. Despite the breakup, she still believed her beauty and status could change his mind. They were seated at a private table near the window. The manager pointed at Ayana. "You, serve that table." Carefully. As Ayana approached with a tray of wine, something stirred in her chest. Her pulse quickened. She hadn't even seen his face, but something deep within her began to thrum like a drumbeat from home. She reached the table. Her hands trembled slightly as she placed the first glass, then the second. But someone had shifted the chair. Her foot caught. The tray tilted. In a split second, as she lost balance, Ayana reached out to break her fall, and her hand gripped the nearest thing, Omari's trousers. Time shattered. The tray crashed. Wine splashed, and Ayana hit the floor, still gripping the billionaire's pants. A loud rip echoed in the air. Gasps exploded across the restaurant. Omari looked down, stunned. Naomi shot to her feet, voice sharp like glass. "What is wrong with you? Have you lost your mind?" Ayana scrambled up, cheeks burning, heart racing. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to." Security moved quickly. Mr. Bayo stormed over, face red with rage. "Ayana, what did you do?" But Omari didn't speak. His eyes were locked on Ayana. Something in her face, her eyes, her shape, her energy, clawed at a part of him he couldn't name. He raised a hand slowly. "It's okay. Let her go." The room froze. Naomi stared at him, stunned. Omari? She just grabbed your pants. She embarrassed you. He didn't answer. He kept looking at Ayana. Then he stood, brushing off the incident like dust. I've lost my appetite. This meeting is over. He walked out. Naomi followed, heels clicking in frustration. Ayana remained in the corner, shaken, trying to steady her breath. She didn't know why he looked at her like that. She didn't know why her legs were trembling. All she knew was something had shifted, and the quiet bond sealed under an iroko tree long ago, it had just begun to stir. Omari didn't sleep that night. He lay in bed, shirt undone, staring at the ceiling as the city lights blinked through the curtains. He closed his eyes, opened them again, rolled over, sat up. But nothing helped. Something inside his chest tugged, quiet, but constant. Not pain, not fear, just weight. Like his soul was trying to whisper a forgotten truth. Eventually he drifted into a restless sleep. And the dreams came. A dense forest, thick green leaves, the sound of distant drums, slow, deep, echoing through the trees. He saw a little black girl under an ancient tree, white chalk on her forehead, a scar on her wrist. A woman in a wrapper knelt over a sick boy, whispering prayers. Then came the girl's eyes, the same eyes that had stared up at him in the restaurant. Her gaze held no fear, only recognition. He woke up sweating. The room was still. His breath was shallow. He stood, walked to the back of his study, and unlocked an old wooden cabinet. Inside were dusty albums, yellowed papers, things he hadn't looked at in years. He flipped through one photo album. His fingers stopped on a faded picture. His mother, standing barefoot in a village. The background was a thicket of palm trees. She was holding him, and beside her stood a dark-skinned healer woman and a little girl. The girl's eyes sparkled. Her wrist bore a faint scar. Omari stared. His chest tightened. He didn't know who she was, but something about the way she stood, the way she looked at the camera, felt too familiar. His memory failed him, but his spirit didn't. The headache returned, sharp and pulsing. He closed the book. Far away, in a shared room at the edge of Abuja, Ayana sat on her mattress holding her stomach. The pain had crept in silently. It wasn't food poisoning. It wasn't nerves. It was something deeper. Her hands trembled as she picked up her phone. She called the only person who might understand. Mama, she whispered when Mama Zora answered. Her voice on the other end was calm, firm, ready. Tell me everything, child. Ayana recounted the incident at the restaurant, the fall, the torn trousers, the man's stare, the storm in her chest, ever since. There was silence on the line. Then Mama Zora spoke. The bond has been touched. What bond? Ayana asked, already fearing the answer. The boy we saved, the one whose hand you held when you were 7, the one our ancestors bound you to. He's near. The bond has awakened. Ayana's eyes welled up. Her fingers traced the scar on her wrist, the one she always kept covered. Everything had been quiet. Until now. The next evening, the sun dipped low over Abuja's skyline, casting a golden glow across rooftops. In a gated mansion in Maitama, laughter and music floated into the air. The scent of grilled meat mixed with perfume, champagne flowed freely, and luxury cars lined the driveway. It was a private welcome party for Omari Okoye, back from a 3-month business trip abroad, fresh from closing a $1 billion deal. The guest list was elite. Executives, politicians, celebrities, all dressed to impress. Ayana didn't know who the party was for when she showed up with her catering team. She wore a plain black dress, apron tied around her waist. She carried drinks, arranged glasses, kept her head down. Just another background girl until she saw him. Omari, the same man she had embarrassed in front of a packed restaurant. The one whose eyes haunted her sleep. Her heart skipped, her hand trembled, She almost dropped the tray. He looked different, stronger but heavier, as if something unseen was pressing on him. His eyes were darker, his movements slower. Then, Naomi appeared, red dress, red lipstick, smile sharp as a blade. "Omari," she purred, gliding up to him. "It's been too long." He gave a polite nod. "Naomi, you look well. I miss this. You, me. I thought maybe we could try again." Omari's tone stayed cold. "You broke up with me and I've moved on." Naomi flinched, then forced a smile. "People still think we're meant to be. I'm not interested in what people think." He rubbed his temple. His breath hitched. Then, it happened. His legs buckled. He stumbled backward, knocking into a table. Glasses shattered, guests screamed, Omari collapsed. 2 men rushed to lift him. Naomi shouted for help. Ayanna stood frozen, hands over her mouth. Her heart screamed louder than the music. She was just a server. But something deep inside told her this wasn't just an accident. She followed the crowd, slipped through the gates. She hid in a quiet corner of the Okoye mansion, watching as chaos unfolded. Paramedics rushed in. Machines beeped. White coats hovered. Time blurred. 2 hours later, the doctors stepped back, confused. "Vitals are unstable," one whispered, but no blockage, no fever, no medical reason. His body's shutting down, from inside. In a dark hallway, Ayanna stepped forward. No one noticed her at first. Then she said softly, "I can help." Heads turned. Naomi stormed forward, furious. You again? You're just a waitress. You humiliated him. You're not touching him." Ayanna didn't flinch. "I've seen this before. I know what to do." "You poisoned him. Stay back," Naomi hissed. But Ayanna reached into her apron, pulled out a tiny bundle of dried herbs, leaves her mother had prepared. She crushed a pinch between her fingers and gently slipped it under Omari's tongue. Seconds passed. Silence. Then he coughed. Once. Twice. His chest lifted. Breath returned, his eyes opened. The room gasped. Naomi's voice cracked. What did you do to him?" But Ayanna said nothing. Omari's gaze found hers. His lips barely moved, but his voice was clear. "I know her." A few hours later, the mansion quieted. Omari lay in his room, wrapped in soft sheets, a damp towel resting on his forehead. The doctors had left. None of them understood how he had recovered so fast, but Omari did. It wasn't medicine. It wasn't luck. It was her. The quiet girl with gentle hands and eyes that pulled at his soul. He sat up, wincing slightly as he moved. "Where is she?" he asked the nurse at the doorway. She hesitated. "The girl?" "She left, sir." "Left?" "Yes." She didn't say anything, just packed up and walked out. Omari's brows drew together. "Did she ask for money?" The nurse shook her head. "Not a naira, no bill, no request, no fuss." Omari leaned back slowly, staring at the ceiling. He tried to convince himself that none of it mattered, that maybe it was all coincidence. Maybe the herbs were just herbs. Maybe she was just a lucky girl. But that quiet calm when she touched him, that unspoken storm in her eyes, no coincidence could explain that. Downstairs, Naomi paced the marble hallway like a trapped animal. Her heels clicked like gunshots, her face twisted in rage. "She did something to him," she snapped. "Don't you all see it?" Mrs. Okoye didn't look up from her tablet. "Naomi, calm down. I will not." That girl stood there like some village priestess putting leaves in his mouth like she owns him. Mrs. Okoye raised her brows. "You're the one who brought him to that restaurant, remember?" Naomi turned to Omari's assistant Malik, who had just walked in. "Do you even know who she is? Some hotel girl? Probably poor, probably playing the long con. I've seen gold diggers before." Malik spoke under his breath. "She didn't ask for anything." Naomi's voice climbed. "Exactly. That's how they trap you, with pity, with silence. Just wait, she'll come back. She'll want something, and by then it'll be too late." But Ayanna didn't come back. She was already walking down a dusty road at the edge of the city. a small bag over her shoulder and the sound of traffic fading behind her. Her steps were slow, but her mind was spinning. She didn't want recognition, or cameras, or chaos. She just wanted peace. Yet deep inside her chest was a heaviness she didn't understand. A pressure that built every time she thought of his eyes. That feeling from the restaurant hadn't gone away. It had grown louder. Mama Zora's words echoed in her head. If either of you tries to fight it, there will be pain, the kind that rises from the soul. So Ayana did what she thought was safest. She ran. Again. Not knowing that in a tall building across the city, a man who once moved nations with his signature now couldn't sleep, because the face of a quiet waitress with long sleeves and a hidden scar refused to leave his dreams. The week passed in a blur of board meetings and strategy briefings, but Omari wasn't truly there. He sat at the head of the conference table, fingers laced, eyes staring at the spreadsheets in front of him, but his thoughts drifted. Ayana's face haunted his days now. Even in the middle of shareholder presentations, he could hear drums like the ones from his dreams, and see a forest that had no place in Abuja. That morning, a colleague tapped him gently. "Sir, the final approvals?" Omari blinked. "What?" "The shareholders need your signature." He reached for the pen, but suddenly his chest tightened. A deep, heavy pull yanked through his ribs like a rope coiled around his heart. His vision blurred. His hands trembled. Then darkness swallowed the room. Omari collapsed. Across the city, at that very moment, Ayana was cleaning the hostel floor. A mop in one hand, earbuds in the other, she suddenly dropped to her knees. Her body swayed. She clutched her stomach, breath shallow. Her skin flushed hot, then cold. She stumbled to the bathroom and vomited violently. The other girls rushed in. Panicked. "Ayana, what's wrong?" She couldn't speak. Her lips were dry, her eyes distant. Her bones ached like they were breaking from inside. She picked up her phone with trembling fingers. "Mama," she whispered when Mama Zora answered. "It's worse." Mama Zora didn't ask more. The next morning, she stepped off a crowded bus into the noisy streets of Abuja. Dressed in a plain wrapper, carrying a cloth bag of herbs, she didn't use a map. She didn't ask for directions. She followed the pull. She followed the bond. It led her straight to the Okoye mansion. At first, the security guards didn't let her in, until Mrs. Okoye herself appeared. The two women locked eyes. "I'm here. For my daughter," Mama Zora said. "And for your son." Mrs. Okoye frowned. "Excuse me?" "They are bound by a vow made long ago in front of the elders of Okoroma. You may have forgotten, but the spirits have not." Mrs. Okoye's mouth parted slightly. A flicker of memory passed through her face. A fevered boy, a desperate promise, a healer in a village. "They are both sick," Mama Zora said gently, "because they're resisting something sacred. If one of them dies, the other may follow." Inside the mansion, Omari was fading again, pale, sweating, barely responsive. Downstairs, Naomi scoffed from the corner, arms folded, voice dripping with sarcasm. "All this talk about soul bonds and ancestors, please. He just needs rest." She turned to Mrs. Okoye. "And that girl, Ayana, she's a scam artist. I bet she faked being sick too. For sympathy. For attention." "Mama." Zora stepped forward. Her voice was soft, but it carried weight. "You can believe what you want, but the fight isn't with me, it's with fate." Naomi laughed once, bitterly. "I don't believe in fate. I believe in facts. And I will make sure she stays away from him." But upstairs, in a dim room filled with whispers and wires, Omari turned in his sleep and muttered one word. "Ayana." After sharing her warning with Mrs. Okoye, Mama Zora didn't stay to argue. She simply gathered her herbs, wrapped them neatly in a cloth, and turned to leave. Before stepping out the mansion's gate, she paused only once and said, "A word is enough for the wise." Then she was gone. She didn't need to linger. The message had been delivered. Back in a small, humid hostel room across the city, Ayana sat curled up on the floor beside her bed, a warm cup of tea resting in her hands. She looked tired, pale, but still smiled softly when her mother walked in. "Mama," she whispered. Mama Zora knelt beside her, brushed a palm across her forehead. "You're still warm." "I'll be fine," Ayana replied, voice gentle. "It's been coming and going." But Mama Zora wasn't convinced. "You said that yesterday, and the day before." Ayana smiled faintly. "I just need a little more rest. You should go back. Soon. I'll be okay." Mama Zora studied her daughter's face, too calm for someone crumbling inside. Still, she nodded and handed her a small brown bottle filled with herbal oil. "Take this. If it worsens, call me, immediately." Ayana nodded slowly. At the Okoye mansion, Omari sat propped up in bed, flipping through that same old photo. His mother standing in the village, the healer beside her, the little girl with the scar. His mother walked in quietly, sensing the heaviness in the room. "I need to ask you something," he said. "Did we ever visit a village god for something spiritual?" Mrs. Okoye hesitated, then nodded. "Yes. You were very sick. Nothing in the city worked. So I took you to a place called Okoroma. A healer saved your life. And the promise?" She sighed, brushing her hand through her hair. "That was just tradition, something ceremonial. I agreed because I was desperate, not because I believed in it. You were a child. She was a child. It didn't mean anything real." Omari looked at her, disbelief stirring in his eyes. "But you remembered it. When you saw Mama Zora today, didn't you?" His mother turned away, voice dropping. "I forgot, until she reminded me. But don't let village superstition cloud your judgment. Naomi is right. You're overworked, that's all." Omari didn't respond. He didn't believe it anymore. That night after the mansion had gone quiet, Malik, the loyal assistant who'd seen more than he ever admitted, made a call. An hour later, Ayana stepped out of a cab and slipped through the back gate of the Okoye estate. Malik met her at the staff entrance and led her up the servants' staircase. Omari was awake, sitting in bed. When she entered, he didn't speak. He didn't need to. She walked quietly to his side, knelt, and opened a small cloth bundle. Dried herbs, crushed leaves, boiled in hot water. She stirred the mixture, added a drop of oil, and handed him the steaming cup. "Drink slowly," she said. He obeyed. One sip, then another. His body relaxed. His shoulders softened. The knot in his chest began to unravel. "You came," he whispered, voice raspy. She nodded. "Only for a short while." The next morning, Naomi arrived at the mansion unannounced. Shiwak had come with a plan. To charm, to reclaim, to remind Omari of the life he should be living. Her heels echoed confidently down the hallway as she made her way toward his room. But just as she reached the top of the stairs, she froze. Outside Omari's door stood Ayana, not in uniform, not serving anyone, just standing there. Their eyes met. Ayana said nothing. Naomi's lips curled, but no words came out. Instead, she turned and walked away, her chest burning, her pride unraveling like a loose thread. That afternoon, news exploded across blogs and gossip sites. Billionaire CEO linked to mysterious herbal waitress. Village girl seduces empire heir. Love potion or love trap? Photos followed. Grainy shots of Ayana from behind, exiting a cab, standing near the back gate, taken by someone clearly paid to watch. Naomi's plan had worked. The media storm had been lit. At a cafe near her hostel, Ayana sat alone, her phone in her hand. Her picture filled the screen. Blurry, but unmistakably her. She didn't cry. She didn't scream. She just logged out of her social media accounts, folded her uniform neatly, and reported for her next shift, like nothing had happened. But the whispers followed her everywhere. "Isn't that the girl from the blogs? She used herbs, right, like real village stuff? She's sleeping with a billionaire and still pouring drinks?" Ayana said nothing. She moved between tables with quiet steps, her expression unreadable, her soul heavy but intact. Meanwhile, back at the Okoye estate, Mrs. Okoye paced in her private study, The tabloids crumpled in her hand. This is getting out of control, she muttered. The board will start asking questions. Investors, too. Omari stood by the window, arms folded. Let them talk. You should care, she snapped. This company is your late father's legacy. Are you ready to lose everything because of some girl from the village? He turned slowly. That girl from the village saved my life. She's ruining your reputation. No, he said, calm and sure. The lies are. Mrs. Okoye inhaled deeply, composing herself. There's a way to end this. A public engagement with Naomi. It would silence the rumors, restore order. Omari stared at her in disbelief. You want me to lie to the world? I want you to protect your name. His voice was steady. I don't love Naomi. Love isn't always the point, she replied. But Omari shook his head. She doesn't love me either. She loves the empire. Mrs. Okoye looked away, her silence saying more than words. A few days later, Ayana received a message through one of the hotel receptionists. It was simple and cold. Meet me at the Ivy Lounge, 3 p.m. sharp. Mrs. Okoye didn't want to go, but something told her she had to face it. So she put on a clean blouse, tied her hair back neatly, and arrived exactly on time. The Ivy Lounge was polished and silent, the kind of place where only the wealthy whispered. Mrs. Okoye was already seated at a corner table adorned with white roses and gleaming cutlery. She didn't look up when Ayana approached, just slid a white envelope across the table. Take it, she said. Ayana sat quietly. What is it? Enough money to disappear. Leave Abuja. Leave this country if you must. Start over, somewhere far from my son. Ayana stared at the envelope. She didn't touch it. I'm not here to take anything from Omari. Mrs. Okoye's eyes remained hard. You already did. His peace, his name, his image. The media follows him like vultures now because of you. Ayana's voice was calm, steady. Your family made a promise. You can deny it, but the bond is real. Mrs. Okoye let out a bitter laugh. Bond? That's village talk. Ayana rose to her feet, still not touching the envelope. Maybe it is, Ma. But twice now that same village talk has saved your son's life. She walked away, leaving the envelope untouched, her dignity untouched, her silence louder than any threat. Later that week, Omari began visiting Ayana more often, first to ask if she was okay, then to sit quietly beside her under the mango tree, near her hostel, then to walk with her in the evenings. No bodyguards, no cameras, just quiet conversation and long silences that said more than words ever could. With Ayana, he didn't have to be a CEO. He didn't have to be a son, a brand, or a symbol. He could just be. They talked about books, about the forest in his dreams. About the bond neither of them asked for, but couldn't deny anymore. And slowly something deeper grew. Not out of obligation, not from tradition, but from choice, from stillness, from love. Days turned into weeks, and the world outside their quiet moments kept spinning, loud, fast, hungry for headlines. But inside their little corner of the city, Ayana and Omari found peace. They met in hidden places, roadside tea stalls, dusty bookstores, small gardens, tucked behind mosques and mini-marts, places where no one knew them and no one cared. Ayana never asked for anything. Not gifts, not money, not promises. She listened, she smiled, she laughed at his dry jokes. And slowly, Omari's walls began to melt. One evening, they sat on an old wooden bench under a mango tree, the setting sun painting the sky in burnt gold. Omari reached for her hand, his fingers brushing hers with intention. I don't know what pulled you into my life, he said, voice low, but I'm not letting go. Ayana looked down, her lashes hiding the glimmer in her eyes. Even if the whole world turns against me, Omari lifted her chin gently, then I'll stand against the world. But not everyone was silent. Naomi had been watching. From the shadows, from afar, Through whispered contacts and bitter phone calls, she had tracked every shift, every smile, every headline, every absence of response from Omari's side. When she saw a blurry photo of the two walking side by side at a local art festival, him in a linen shirt, her in a floral dress, something inside her snapped. She couldn't accept it. So she made a plan. She hired a private investigator. She paid a shady doctor with the right credentials and the wrong ethics. Within days, she had a sealed envelope in her hand, a fake file stamped and signed containing a forged history of Ayana's supposed mental instability, false breakdowns, made-up herbal episodes, accusations of manipulation. It painted Ayana as dangerous, calculated, the villain of a twisted love story. Naomi brought it straight to Mrs. Okoye, a smug look on her face as she dropped the file on her polished desk. This is who she really is. Mrs. Okoye opened the folder and read, her face unreadable. The stamp looked real. The story seemed plausible. She remembered the village promise. But this was documented. This felt official. She sighed heavily. Later that night she showed it to Omari. He sat on the edge of his bed and read every line carefully. When he finished, he looked up at his mother, quiet but steady. She's perfectly fine. Omari, she's not unstable. This is fake. How do you know? He handed the file back. Because I know her. Omari handed the forged report to Malik, his trusted assistant. Find out where this came from. I want names. I want truth. 2 days later, Malik returned with the truth, and it was uglier than expected. The doctor listed on the report didn't exist. The clinic address was fake. The stamp had been lifted from an old legal file and repurposed. And the source, Naomi Omari, called her. She arrived wearing a confident smile, thinking she had a final chance to twist the story in her favor. He held up the forged report. This is the last time you'll ever be near me again. Her smile faltered. Omari, But he had already turned away. The next day, Omari planned to take Ayana to a private business dinner. An important one. Investors, executives, high-profile names. It wasn't about flaunting their relationship. It was about standing beside her. Publicly, Ayana wore a soft blue gown that evening. She stepped into the venue beside him, nervous but graceful. She didn't need diamonds. She didn't need cameras. She just needed to breathe beside him. They made it halfway through the event before Naomi appeared. She wore a glittering black dress and a poisonous smile. She didn't walk. She glided, her presence sharp like broken glass. She stood in front of them and raised her voice so the entire room could hear. Oh, how sweet. The village healer's daughter is now the CEO's +1. How far we've come. Gasps floated across the room. Some guests turned. Others whispered behind wine glasses. Ayana froze. Naomi stepped closer. Tell us, Ayana, what herbs did you use to make him fall in love? Or was it your cheap little act when your hands ripped his pants in public? She laughed loudly. Or maybe it was something else you took off that night, The laughter was cruel. But Omari didn't let her finish. He stepped in front of Ayana. Enough. Without another word, he took Ayana's hand, turned, and walked her out of the ballroom. The crowd parted. The silence behind them was louder than any insult. Outside in the cool night air, Ayana fought back tears. I shouldn't have come, she whispered. Omari cupped her face gently. She'll never come near you again. His voice was calm but final. That part of my life is over, and from that moment forward, Naomi was no longer part of his story. Not in business, not in family, not in love. The days after the business event were peaceful. No more cameras, no more headlines, just soft mornings and quiet walks. Omari and Ayana moved like they'd always belonged together, but the peace didn't last. Ayana started feeling sick again. This time it was worse. Her hands shook when she tried to hold a cup. Her breath grew short. She couldn't keep food down. Her skin turned pale, her strength slipping by the hour. Mama Zora returned in a rush. She found her daughter lying on the mattress in their shared hostel room, voice faint, lips dry. She touched Ayana's forehead, frowning deeply. "This isn't stress," she murmured. "This isn't just sickness." She wrapped her herbs with care. She whispered prayers under her breath. Then she made a call to Okoroma. That night, she spoke to the village elder, a quiet man with ash-gray eyes and a walking stick carved with sacred symbols. She told him everything: Ayana's collapse, her bond with Omari, the signs, the dreams, the sickness that followed each separation. The elder listened in silence. Then he spoke. The bond was sealed in childhood, but it was never completed until they become one. Through true union or through the giving of their bodies, this sickness will grow. If they continue to resist, one may not survive. Mama Zora closed her eyes. Her heart clenched. She called, "Ayana, close." Ayana listened quietly, pressing a trembling hand to her chest. "I understand, Mama." The next day, Ayana sat across from Omari in a private cafe he had rented for just the two of them. Her skin was pale, but she smiled gently through the weakness. He held her hand tightly. "You look worse. We need to go to a hospital. Real tests, full scans." She nodded, then took a breath. "There's something I need to tell you." She told him about the elder, about the incomplete bond, about what must be done, the truth her body could no longer hide. Omari's jaw tensed. "Ayana, I love you, but I can't let some village prophecy dictate our future." She didn't argue. "I know. We'll find doctors. We'll fix this. We'll try everything." Ayana smiled faintly. "I know you will." That night, she sat with Mama Zora, her bag already packed. She hadn't told Omari yet. In the morning, they would return to Okoroma. If her body was going to fail, she wanted to be home when it did. The sky was still gray when Ayana and Mama Zora arrived at the bus park. Ayana wore a plain, long dress, her head wrapped in a soft scarf. Her hands clutched her small bag in one hand and her mother's arm in the other. They boarded the bus in silence. As the engine roared to life far across the city, Omari collapsed again. It happened in his office. He had just stood up to sign a document, but before his pen touched the paper, his hand froze mid-air. His knees buckled. His body crashed to the floor. Staff panicked. The ambulance arrived within minutes. At the hospital, machines hummed. Wires wrapped around his chest, but no one could explain it. "He's not responding," the doctor said, helpless. "Vitals are falling. There's no medical cause. It's like he's fading from the inside out." Outside the ICU, Mrs. Okoye trembled. "What's happening? To my son?" she cried, turning to Malik. "Do something." Malik thought for a second, then did what Omari would have done. He called Ayana. She answered on the first ring. "Please," Malik said. "He needs you. Now." Ayana didn't hesitate. She told the driver to stop the bus. She and Mama Zora jumped down, flagged the nearest cab, and raced to the hospital. They didn't ask permission when they arrived. Ayana walked straight into the ICU, her scarf slipping slightly as she stepped toward Omari's lifeless body. Pale, cold, still. She reached out and gently touched his hand. The moment their skin met, Omari gasped. His chest lifted sharply, like someone pulled him up from underwater. The machines beeped faster. His eyes fluttered open. He looked up, right at her. "You came." Tears streamed down Ayana's cheeks. "Of course I came." Mrs. Okoye stood frozen just beyond the door. She had seen it with her own eyes. No pills, no tubes, no doctors. Just Ayana's hand, and her son came back. She said nothing, but the silence was thick with truth. Later that evening, when the doctors had left, and only the sound of beeping monitors remained, Mrs. Okoye stepped forward. She looked at Mama Zora, first voice trembling. "I was wrong." Ayana looked up. Mrs. Okoye continued, "I forgot the promise I made to the woman who saved my son's life. And because of my pride, these children, both of them, suffered." She turned to Mama Zora. "I'm sorry." Mama Zora nodded gently. "We are mothers. And mothers make mistakes when they are afraid. But now we see the truth. And that is enough. She took Mrs. Okoye's hand. I forgive you. Then Mrs. Okoye turned to Ayanna. You have my blessing, child. That night, as Omari held Ayanna's hand in his hospital bed, he whispered, everything started because of a bond, a promise. But that's not why I love you. Ayanna looked into his eyes, silent. I love you because when the world turned against you, you didn't run. Because with you, I feel peace. Because without you, I can't breathe right. Ayanna smiled and kissed him softly. At a media event broadcast across the nation, Omari stood in front of cameras with Ayanna beside him in a simple white dress. Many of you have questions, he began, so let me answer clearly. I love her. Not because of a headline, not because of a scandal, I chose her. Gasps, whispers, smiles. He continued, she is my peace. And the world should know that. And the world did know. Online, people began to call it a modern-day fairy tale, the village girl who healed the billionaire's heart. Omari announced a new initiative. We're dissolving the pharmaceutical wing of Okoye Biotech, he said at a press conference. In its place, we're founding a new division, one focused entirely on herbal and traditional medicine, a field this continent has long undervalued. He looked at Ayanna sitting in the front row. It will be called the Ayanna Research Institute. Laughter filled the halls of the newly built Okoye Holistic Center. Sunlight streamed through wide glass windows. Flowers bloomed in the courtyard. In the herbal clinic, Ayanna, now Mrs. Ayanna Okoye, crushed fresh leaves in a clay bowl. Mama Zora sat beside her, sorting herbs with calm hands. They worked side by side as always. In the main hallway, Omari led a group of young interns. Modern science met ancient knowledge. No titles, no pride, just healing. People came from every state, rich and poor, young and old. They came seeking something they couldn't find anywhere else. And they found it. In the quiet black girl who once walked through storms without asking for anything. In the healer who didn't need recognition. In the man who chose love over legacy. She left the city quietly. No. Goodbye, no headlines, only shame. She disappeared into silence, broken by her own pride. They said she was just a village girl, that she didn't belong in his world. But in the end, it wasn't medicine that saved him. Not money, not power. It was love. Quiet, steady, and real. The kind that doesn't demand, the kind that chooses again and again even when the world turns away. Ayanna never chased riches. She never begged to belong. She simply stood in her truth and reminded everyone, true worth isn't where you're from. It's how you carry love.